Today, we're going to dig into the work of philosopher Dudley Knowles to try and understand the very heart of our political arguments.
So let's just start with a feeling I think we all know. You're in an argument about politics, right? Could be with your family, over dinner, could be with strangers online, and it just feels like you're speaking completely different languages. It's not just about disagreeing on the facts, it's like you're operating from two totally different planets. So why does it feel so impossible?
Well, according to Dudley Knowles, political philosophy actually starts way closer to home than we think. It can literally begin with that rebellious moment a teenager has, asking their parents, hey, why do I have to follow your rules just because you say so? You know that instinct, to question authority. That right there, that's the spark.
And it turns out that simple act of questioning, it sends us down one of two fundamentally different paths, two competing ways of thinking that are really the key to understanding why we argue about politics in the first place. So let's explore that first path.
Okay, for this first approach, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself climbing a tall mountain, just to get away from all the noise and all the biases of your everyday life, so you can finally find a clear universal perspective. This is what we call the individualist stance. The big idea here is that to figure out the right rules for everyone, you have to mentally step outside of it all, outside your own family, your own culture, even your own country. You have to try and shed all your personal loyalties and just use pure, impartial reason. The great philosopher Immanuel Kant just captured this spirit perfectly. He said, "We live in an age of criticism, where nothing gets a free pass. Every single tradition, every institution, every belief has to stand up to the rigorous test of pure reason. And if it can't be justified from that detached, logical point of view, well, it has to go." So you can see this method is top-down. You start with these huge universal principles, ideas like liberty and equality, and then you apply them down onto the world. This was the whole project for giants like Hobbes, Locke, and Kant. They were all searching for that universal, God's-eye view of what justice should be.
But there's a really powerful counter-argument. What if you can't just climb a mountain and leave everything behind? What if who you are is completely tied up with the view from your own front door?
And this brings us to the second path, the communitarian stance. This view basically says, hold on a second, we're just kidding ourselves if we think we can become these abstract, detached reasoners. Our moral compass isn't built in a vacuum, right? It's forged by our community, our history, our loyalties. To think about right and wrong, you have to start from where you actually are. The philosopher Hegel had this beautiful phrase for this idea. He called it our ethical life. I love that. Think of it like your unique moral address. It's all the things that make you you. Your family, your town, your nation, your history. And these aren't just biases that you can just take off like a coat. No way. They are the very fabric of your identity.
So this approach is totally bottom-up. You don't start with some abstract theory from a mountaintop. No, you start with the messy, real, lived-in world. You start with the duties and loyalties you already feel. Our identities are, quote, thick with attachments. And that's not some problem to be corrected. It is the very foundation of our moral world.
All right, let's put these side by side because this is the whole thing right here. On one side, you've got the individualists, the view from the mountaintop. They start from a detached I, and they use reason to question absolutely everything. It's a radical approach. Then on the other side, you've got the communitarian, the view from home. They start from an embedded we, and they work within the traditions they already know, which is a more conservative approach. It's really a clash between pure reason and lived reality.
Okay, so we've got these two completely different starting points, the mountaintop versus the home. So what happens when these two worlds collide? Well, you get a complete and total deadlock.
And there's a classic thought experiment that brings this conflict to life with brutal clarity. It's called the sheriff's dilemma.
Okay, so imagine this. A huge riot is about to break out and it's going to kill dozens of people. The sheriff knows, he is certain that he can stop it all by framing one single innocent person for a crime. That'll satisfy the mob. So on one side, you have that cold, rational theory from the mountaintop, utilitarianism. It says the right action is whatever creates the greatest good for the greatest number. Do the math, right? Sacrifice the one to save the many. But then, on the other side, you have that deep, gut-level intuition from home that just screams, it is fundamentally wrong to punish an innocent person. Period. Full stop.
So, what gives? What do you do? Do you stick to your powerful logical theory even when it leads to a conclusion that feels monstrous? Or do you trust your deep moral gut feeling, even if you can't logically prove why it's more important than saving all those lives? This right here, this is the impasse.
And honestly, for a long time, philosophy was pretty much stuck here. But what if it's not a battle to the death between theory and intuition? What if instead, it's a conversation? The philosopher John Rawls gave this whole process a name: reflective equilibrium. And the key thing to understand is that it's not about finding one final perfect answer. It's a method. It's the constant, patient work of moving back and forth between our gut feelings and our abstract theories, always trying to get them to live in harmony.
Here's how it works. You start with a really strong intuition, like punishing the innocent is wrong. Okay. Then you try to build a general theory from that. Something like justice means never treating people as a mere means to an end. But then you have to test that theory against other situations. And if you find a conflict, you don't just throw one of them out, you adjust. Maybe you tweak the theory a bit, or maybe you re-examine that gut feeling. You just keep going back and forth, endlessly refining, trying to build a worldview that's more and more coherent.
So the best way to think of reflective equilibrium is as a dialogue. It's the process that lets our abstract principles from the mountaintop actually talk to our deeply held intuitions from home. Neither side gets to be a dictator. Instead, they have to learn from each other, constantly informing and correcting one another.
And this leads us to a really profound conclusion from Dudley Knowles. Because if this is a continuous, never-ending process, it means that in philosophy, nothing is ever truly set in stone. Even our most passionate, most personal commitments, they have to be seen as provisional, always open to revision as we keep doing this work of reflection.
Which leaves us with one final thought to chew on. If the goal isn't to find a single, final, correct answer, but to instead engage in a lifelong process of balancing our theories and our intuitions, what does that mean for the beliefs that we hold most dear right now? Are we willing to put them into that conversation?